The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. Their ships were the fastest, their weapons the deadliest, and their military doctrine had never been challenged. When their long-range sensors detected a primitive civilization in the Sol system, they dispatched Battle Group 7 to claim the territory and assess the natives for potential labor resources. Commander stood on the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, his 4 eyes scanning the tactical display. The human was now in visual range, a blue marble spinning in the void. Intelligence reports suggested these humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel, making them insignificant in the grand scheme of galactic power. "Send the standard subjugation message," ordered, his translator converting his clicks and whistles into galactic standard. "Inform them they have 12 hours to surrender their system or face annihilation." Meanwhile, aboard the human vessel USS Defiance, Captain Jake sat in his command chair reviewing the alien transmission. The ship was one of Earth's first true warships, built after humanity had reverse-engineered captured alien technology from a crashed probe 5 years earlier. Around him, his crew worked with focused intensity. "They're demanding we surrender Earth," Lieutenant Amy Barnes reported from communications, her voice tight with controlled anger. "They've given us 12 hours. Jake leaned back, his jaw clenched. "Have we finished the modifications to the weapons systems?" "Yes, sir," replied Chief Engineer Hudson from his station. "The kinetic accelerators are operating at 200% of original specs. They are hot and ready." Jake nodded slowly. Humanity had learned much in the past 5 years, not just about alien technology, but about alien arrogance. The assumed Earth was helpless. They were about to learn otherwise. "Send them our response," Jake said quietly. "Tell them Earth does not surrender. Not today, not ever." In the command center, his mandibles clicked in amusement when the translation came through. "Such defiance from primitives. Weapons officer, destroy their largest city. Show them the price of resistance." But before the order could be executed, alarms shrieked across the bridge. The human ship had vanished from sensors, then reappeared directly behind their formation. Impossible. Their drives couldn't be that fast. "Commander, they're powering weapons," the tactical officer reported, his voice rising in panic. "Energy signatures are off the scale. They shouldn't have that kind of output." The first round struck the Eternal Dominion's shield at a significant fraction of light speed. The shield held for exactly 1.3 seconds before catastrophic failure. The tungsten penetrator punched through the hull, venting 3 decks to space and destroying the primary reactor. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," shouted, but the humans were already firing again. The USS Defiance moved through the formation like a predator among prey. Each shot was calculated, precise, devastating. Human weapons didn't rely on energy shields or plasma containment. They used simple, brutal kinetic force, the same physics that had dominated human warfare for centuries, now amplified to terrifying effect. 2 enemy cruisers disabled, Amy reported. 3 more breaking formation. Jake watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. "Target their command ship. Let's send a message back to their empire." The final salvo turned the Eternal Dominion into an expanding cloud of debris. Of the 12 ships that had arrived to conquer Earth, only 4 limped away through hyperspace, carrying news that would shake the galaxy to its core. Humanity had announced its presence, and the announcement had been written in fire and fury. The emergency session of the High Command was in chaos. Holographic displays showed the wreckage of Battle Group 7, or what little remained of it. Around the circular chamber, military commanders from a dozen species argued in a cacophony of languages and cliques. Supreme Admiral slammed his appendage on the command podium, silencing the room. "Explain to me how a single primitive vessel destroyed 8 warships and crippled 4 others." Science Director Era stepped forward, her scales rippling with nervousness. "Supreme Admiral, Our initial assessment was clearly flawed. The humans have developed weapons technology that bypasses conventional defenses. Their kinetic weapons don't trigger our energy-based countermeasures. Kinetic weapons, his voice dripped with scorn. Like throwing rocks, we abandoned such primitive methods ago. These aren't rocks, sir. Era pulled up a tactical analysis. They're accelerating projectiles to relativistic speeds using electromagnetic principles. The impact energy exceeds our plasma weapons, and there's no energy signature to detect until they're already fired. Our shields are designed to deflect energy weapons and conventional missiles. Against solid projectiles at these velocities, they're nearly useless. Defense Coordinator leaned forward, his compound eyes studying the data. This changes everything. If other species learn they can defeat our fleets with such simple technology, the Empire will face rebellion on every frontier. Back on Earth, the victory celebration was subdued. Jake stood in the briefing room at Luna Command, surrounded by military leadership and government officials. On the wall, a star map showed territory, a vast red stain covering a quarter of the galaxy. "We hurt them, but we didn't stop them," said General Lisa Martinez, head of Earth Defense Forces. "Intelligence suggests they have over 10,000 warships. We have 15. 16 now," interjected Director from the shipyards. "The USS Vengeance just completed trials, and we have 30 more under construction." "Which won't matter if they send their entire fleet," Senator Wright said grimly. "We need allies." Jake nodded. "During the battle, I intercepted communications between the ships. They mentioned vassal species and subjugated worlds. The Empire has enemies, or at least populations that might welcome liberation." "You're suggesting we go on the offensive?" General Martinez asked. "I'm suggesting we don't wait for them to come back with overwhelming force," Jake replied. "We hit their supply lines, free their slaves, and build a coalition. We show the galaxy that they can be beaten." In the weeks that followed, the USS Defiance and her sister ships began striking outposts along the frontier. The raids were surgical, quick, focused on liberating slave worlds and capturing enemy technology. Each victory brought new allies and new intelligence about the Empire's weaknesses. The meanwhile struggled to adapt. Their doctrine had been built on energy weapons and shield technology perfected over centuries. Retooling their entire military-industrial complex to counter kinetic weapons would take years they didn't have. But the Empire had one advantage: numbers, and they were preparing to use them. Aboard the super dreadnought Absolute Authority, Supreme Admiral assembled the largest battle fleet in history. 300 warships, with enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. "This time," he told his officers, "we will not underestimate the humans. We will drown them in numbers, overwhelm their defenses, and reduce them to ash. No more cautious probing. We strike with everything." The message was transmitted across secure channels to all fleet commanders. Destination Earth, objective extinction. But the message was intercepted by a reptilian species that had served as communications specialists for generations, and they had not forgotten their own conquest, their own dead. An encrypted transmission reached Luna Command 3 days before the fleet would arrive. On the screen, an officer identified herself as commander. "Humans, the Empire sends death to your world. 300 ships. They arrive in 72 hours. Fight well. Die free." Jake read the message twice, then looked at his assembled crew. 72 hours. Time to show the galaxy what humanity does best. Lieutenant Amy Barnes looked up from her station. "And what's that, sir?" Jake smiled grimly. "Improvise." The shipyards above Mars worked around the clock, welding armor plates and installing weapon systems on hulls that were barely complete. Every civilian ship that could mount a was drafted. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, even luxury yachts were retrofitted with whatever weapons humanity could spare. On Earth, cities transformed into fortresses. Orbital defense platforms, hastily constructed from asteroid mining equipment, dotted the space around the planet. They wouldn't stop a fleet, but they would buy time. Jake stood on the bridge of the USS Defiance, now flagship of humanity's defense fleet. Around him, holographic displays showed the positions of Earth's 27 military vessels and 63 armed civilian ships. Against 300 warships, it was laughable, but humans had never been good at accepting defeat. "Fleet status?" he asked. "All ships report ready," Amy Barnes replied. "Admiral sends her regards from the USS Retribution and says her people are ready to make the Empire regret ever hearing the word human." Chief Engineer Hudson looked up from his console. "Captain, I've been thinking about their shields. They're designed to disperse energy across the entire protective envelope, but if we coordinate our fire, hit the same point simultaneously with multiple rounds, the shield collapses locally before it can redistribute the energy," Jake finished, understanding immediately. "Link our targeting computers across the fleet. Every ship targets the same vessel, same point, same moment." In the cold void beyond Pluto, reality tore open as 300 warships dropped out of hyperspace. The formation was precise, practiced, overwhelming. Supreme Admiral watched Earth on his with satisfaction. "Begin the approach," he ordered. "All weapons free. I want nothing left alive on that planet." The fleet moved forward in perfect formation, engines blazing. They expected to find Earth's pitiful defense scattered, desperate, easy prey. Instead, they found an empty void. "Where are they?" demanded. "Sensors, locate the human fleet." "No contacts, sir. Nothing on any frequency." Then, like ghosts materializing from darkness, the human ships appeared. They had been drifting, powered down, hidden behind the ice and rock of the outer system. Now their reactors flared to life, and they accelerated toward the fleet at speeds that should have been impossible. "All ships fire at will," ordered, but the humans were already inside their defensive perimeter, too close for them to maneuver effectively. The USS Defiance led the charge, her speaking in rapid succession. But this time, she wasn't alone. 26 other warships opened fire simultaneously, their targeting computers synchronized. 300 kinetic rounds struck the lead dreadnought in the same second, hitting the same point on its shield. The shield shattered like glass. The rounds continued through, tearing the massive ship apart from bow to stern. It exploded in a brief, brilliant sun. "Break by squadrons," Jake ordered. "Hit-and-run tactics. Don't let them mask their fire." The battle dissolved into chaos, exactly as humanity had planned. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and their weapons punched through shields that had been considered impregnable for centuries. But they had numbers, and slowly, inevitably, those numbers began to tell. The USS Retribution took a direct hit from plasma cannons, her hull breaching in 3 places. Admiral gave the order to abandon ship, then manually piloted the dying vessel into a cruiser, destroying both. Across the battle space, civilian ships fought with desperate courage. The mining hauler Prosperity, armed with a single and crewed by volunteers, crippled 2 enemy frigates before she was blown apart. "We're being overwhelmed," Amy reported, her voice steady despite the desperate situation. "We've destroyed 47 enemy ships, but we've lost 18 of our own. The civilian fleet is down to 30 vessels." Jake watched the tactical display, calculating angles and timing. They were pushing toward Earth, and humanity didn't have the numbers to stop them. But they didn't need to stop them. They just needed to hurt them badly enough. "Signal all ships," he said quietly. "Ramming speed, target the super dreadnought." Looked up in shock. "Sir, that's a suicide run." "This is humanity's last stand. We make it count. We show every species in this galaxy that Earth doesn't break. We don't surrender, and we sure as hell don't go quietly." The remaining human ships turned as one, engines pushing beyond safety limits, accelerating toward the absolute authority. Watched them come, understanding too late what they intended. "Evasive maneuvers," he shouted, but the super dreadnought was too massive, too slow. Then the void lit up with new arrivals. 100 ships dropped out of hyperspace between the humans and ships of a dozen different designs, carrying the marks of vassal species from across the empire. On all frequencies, a message broadcast in Mordant and a dozen other languages. "For too long we have served. Today we fight for freedom. Today we stand with humanity." The rebellion had begun. The arrival of the rebel fleet turned the tide instantly. Ships that had been built in yards maintained by overseers now turned their weapons against their former masters. The cruisers, designed for communications and surveillance, revealed hidden weapons systems. The heavy fighters, supposedly unarmed transports, deployed missile batteries. Supreme Admiral watched his perfect formation disintegrate into confusion. This is impossible. The vassal species don't have military vessels. They're not permitted weapons. Apparently they've been preparing for this moment for years, his tactical officer reported, voice trembling. The humans gave them the courage to act. Aboard the USS Defiance, Jake stared at the sensor displays in disbelief, then allowed himself a grim smile. All human vessels form up on the rebel fleet, coordinate targeting solutions. Let's finish this. The combined human-rebel fleet tore into the formation with renewed fury. Commander's forces showed intimate knowledge of shield frequencies and reactor configurations. Every shot counted. Every strike found weak points that shouldn't have been known to anyone outside the Empire's inner circles. The wing commander, a grizzled veteran named, transmitted to the Defiance. "Captain, our people have waited 3 generations for this moment. We have studied their tactics, memorized their weaknesses, and dreamed of freedom. Today, we take it." "Then let's take it together," Jake responded. "Amy, get me a fleet-wide channel." When the channel opened, Jake's voice carried to over 200 ships. "This is Captain of Earth. To our new allies, you have our gratitude and our respect. To those you came here to conquer. Instead, you've united those you oppressed. Your empire ends today." The absolute authority tried to retreat, but 3 cruisers had positioned themselves to block the escape vector. Ordered his remaining forces to break through, but the rebel ships fought with the fury of the long oppressed. They knew every weak point, every system vulnerability, every tactical doctrine they would use. Hudson suddenly called out from his engineering station. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy buildups in the flagship. They're overloading their reactor." Jake's eyes widened. "They're going to self-destruct, take out the entire battle space with them." He opened channels to all nearby ships. "All vessels, emergency jump, get clear now." Ships scattered in every direction, drives straining to achieve jump velocity. The USS Defiance was pulling away when Jake noticed one vessel still engaged with the flagship at close range. A damaged frigate, her drives clearly non-functional. "Get me Commander," Jake ordered. The appeared on screen, her scaled features calm despite the fires visible behind her. "Captain, my ship is crippled. We will not escape." "We can send shuttles." "There is no time. Go, Captain. Tell the galaxy that died free fighting beside humans. It is enough." The screen went dark. Jake gritted his teeth and gave the order to jump. The Defiance and the other vessels vanished into hyperspace seconds before the absolute authority detonated. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star briefly blazing in the sky. When the fleet emerged from hyperspace near Mars, they found themselves not alone. News of the battle had spread through clandestine channels across the galaxy. 50 more rebel ships had gathered at the rally point, representatives from a dozen oppressed species. A mordant diplomat transmitted a message. "We are the sovereign coalition. For centuries, the Empire has claimed the right to rule through superior force. Humanity has proven that might does not grant right. We offer an alliance. Our knowledge of the Empire's infrastructure and systems, your military capabilities, and a shared commitment to freedom. General Martinez joined the transmission from Luna Command. Earth accepts, but understand, we're not looking to replace one empire with another. We fight for independence, not domination. As do we all, the Mordant replied. The coalition seeks only to liberate, never to conquer. Over the following weeks, the coalition struck deep into territory. Human warships led assault forces that freed slave worlds and destroyed military installations. Each victory brought more allies, more ships, more worlds willing to throw off their chains. But the Empire was not finished. As news of the defeats reached the core worlds, the Grand Council made a decision that would determine the fate of the galaxy. They activated the Terminus Protocol. Deep in the Empire's heart, in facilities hidden for, weapons woke that had not been used since the first conquered the galaxy. Weapons that made fleet actions look like children's squabbles, planet killers, system destroyers, tools of extinction. An encrypted message reached the coalition from a defector, a scientist named. His hologram appeared before the coalition leadership, showing blueprints and specifications that made even hardened military commanders pale. They built these weapons when they first achieved, explained. They were meant to ensure the species' survival by guaranteeing no other species could threaten them. They have the capacity to ignite stars, to crack worlds, to sterilize entire systems of life. Jake studied the schematics, his jaw tight. How many? 12 confirmed, possibly more, and they're moving them toward coalition territory. His image flickered. I'm transmitting my location. I can help you stop them, but you must come now. They know I've betrayed them. The race to prevent galactic genocide had begun. The coalition fleet converged on the Sigma Draconis system, where had taken refuge on a mining station. The scientist was brought aboard the USS Defiance, his multiple limbs trembling as he was escorted to the bridge. Unlike most, his manner was apologetic, even ashamed. I helped build these weapons, he told the assembled officers. I believed we were protecting our species. Instead, we created instruments of terror. He pulled up a star map showing 12 red indicators. These are the weapon deployment locations. Each terminus device can trigger a star to go supernova or fracture a planet's core. They're positioned to destroy every major coalition world. Can they be stopped? Asked Commander of the Forces. Each device has a quantum-encrypted control system. They can only be disarmed by someone with intimate knowledge of their construction, and there are only 3 alive with that knowledge. I am one. The other 2 are loyal to the Empire. General Martinez appeared via hologram from Earth. Then we need to split our forces. 12 targets, limited time, and they will defend these positions with everything they have left. Jake studied the star map, calculating distances and fleet compositions. We divide into 12 strike teams. Each team gets a small, fast force and one of our best captains. Can you create bypass protocols for the other teams to use? I can create partial protocols, but someone will need to physically access each device. And they will have trap protocols. One wrong entry and the device activates automatically. Then we'll have to be very careful, Amy Barnes said quietly. Sir, I volunteer for one of the teams. As do I, added Hudson. We've come this far together. Jake nodded slowly. Amy, you'll take the USS Retribution II with the 3rd strike team. You'll go with Commander on the flagship. I'll lead the assault on the primary device at Prime itself. The eyes widened. That's suicide. They have 200 defensive platforms and 50 capital ships guarding the system. Which is exactly where I need to be, Jake replied. If we're going to end this war, we need to cut off the head. The Grand Council sits on Prime. They activated these weapons. We need to show them the cost of that decision. Over the next 3 days, the Coalition fleet dispersed across 100 light-years of space. Each strike team jumped into their target system, facing desperate defensive forces. They knew what was at stake. If the Terminus devices were disabled, they would lose their ultimate deterrent. If the devices activated, they would destroy the Coalition but also cement their reputation as genocidal monsters. At the 442 system, Amy Barnes led her team through a gauntlet of orbital mines and defensive drones. The Terminus device sat on an airless moon, protected by shield generators and automated defenses. Her boarding team fought through waves of security mechs before reaching the core. "I'm in," she transmitted, walking me through it. The scientist's voice was calm, professional. "You'll see 3 quantum locks. The first one requires a 16-digit code based on prime number sequences." At Tau, Hudson and Commander faced a different challenge. The Terminus device was hidden inside an artificial moon, surrounded by a minefield that had taken decades to deploy. Their solution was characteristically human. They accelerated a captured freighter to ramming speed and sent it through the minefield, using the explosions to clear a path. "Sometimes," muttered as he worked on the device's control panel, "the old ways are the best ways." But at Prime, Jake faced the Empire's final stand. 200 defense platforms opened fire as the USS Defiance and her escorts dropped out of hyperspace. The void lit up with energy weapons and missile contrails. "Evasive pattern Delta," Jake ordered calmly. "Target the platforms first. We can't reach the planet until we clear a path." The battle was brutal and desperate. The USS Defiance took hit after hit, her armor ablating under sustained fire. But the Coalition ships fought with precision born of experience. They had learned the lessons of countless battles. Every shot counted. Every maneuver had purpose. A destroyer sacrificed herself to take out a cluster of platforms, her captain transmitting a final message. "For Commander, for all the who dreamed of this day." Slowly, the defensive network collapsed. Jake guided his crippled ship through the debris field toward the planet's surface, where sensors had located the primary Terminus device in the Grand Council's chambers themselves. "They put it in their government building," Amy transmitted from across the galaxy, incredulous. "Makes sense," Jake replied. "If everything goes wrong, they take themselves out too, ultimate commitment to their cause." He looked at his crew. "Boarding team, gear up. This is going to be close and personal." The USS Defiance crash-landed in the courtyard of the Grand Council chambers, her hull breaching in a dozen places but her crew alive. Jake led 30 Marines through the ornate halls, fighting past guards who fought with the desperation of a species facing extinction. They found the Grand Council in session, the Terminus device dominating the center of the chamber. The council members sat in their ceremonial seats, refusing to flee despite the sounds of battle drawing closer. Grand Counselor stood, addressing Jake directly. "Human, you have won your war, but understand, we will not serve. We will not be subjugated as we subjugated others. If the Empire falls, we fall with it." Jake lowered his weapon slightly. "We're not here to enslave you. We're here to stop you from committing genocide." "And what happens after? The galaxy remembers what we did for 3,000 years. Do you think the species we oppressed will grant us mercy? We will be hunted, hated, destroyed piece by piece." "Maybe," Jake said quietly, "or maybe you'll have to live with what you've done, face the consequences, make amends." He moved toward the Terminus device. "But you don't get to take 1 billion innocent lives with you as some kind of twisted atonement." His hand moved toward a control panel, but before he could activate it, a plasma bolt struck him from behind. Stood in the doorway, weapon trembling in his appendages. "I will not let my species become monsters," the scientist said. "Not anymore." Jake worked quickly with guidance, his fingers flying over the controls. Across the galaxy, 11 other teams reported success. One by one, the terminus devices powered down, their destructive potential neutralized. When the final light turned green, Jake let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. It's done. The war is over. But dying on the chamber floor managed a bitter laugh. No, human, the hard part is just beginning. Now you must build a peace. Good luck with that. 6 months later, the Treaty of Terra was signed aboard a neutral station in orbit around a previously contested world. Representatives from 300 species gathered to establish the framework for a new galactic order. The empire was dissolved. Its territory was divided among newly independent worlds, with reparations agreements established for species that had been enslaved. War crimes tribunals were set up to judge those responsible for atrocities, but Jake himself for leniency for lower ranking who had simply been following orders. Vengeance is easy, he told the tribunal. Justice is harder, but if we want this peace to last, we need to show mercy where it's warranted. Earth became the symbolic center of the new sovereign coalition, not through military might but through moral authority. Humanity's refusal to replace one empire with another resonated across species that had known only domination for generations. Jake retired from military service and returned to Earth, where he took up teaching at the newly established Academy of Cooperation. On clear nights, he would stand on the Academy's observation deck and look up at the stars, knowing that somewhere out there, on hundreds of worlds, people were looking at those same stars and seeing hope instead of fear. In her last transmission to him, Amy Barnes, now commanding the Coalition patrol ship Remembrance, sent a simple message. "We did it, Captain. We changed the galaxy. Not bad for a bunch of humans who were supposed to be primitives." Hudson, working as chief engineer on the first joint human-alien starship project, added his own note. "The Empire thought our kinetic weapons were primitive. Turns out, sometimes the simplest solutions are the most revolutionary. Who knew?" But perhaps the most meaningful message came from an unexpected source. Now leading the restoration movement on his, transmitted a hologram showing children learning alongside those of other species. "Captain," he said, "my people have much to atone for, but you showed us something we had forgotten in 3 of Conquest. That strength is not found in domination, but in cooperation. Your species defeated us not just with better weapons, but with better principles. For that, the galaxy will remember humanity not as conquerors, but as liberators." As Jake stood watching the stars, he reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From that first desperate battle against overwhelming odds to the creation of a new galactic order, humanity had proven that the most dangerous thing in the universe wasn't the biggest gun or the strongest shield. It was the refusal to surrender, the courage to stand against tyranny, and the wisdom to show mercy in victory. The Galactic Empire had panicked when they encountered that first human warship. They had said it was impossible. They had been right. By every conventional measure, humanity's victory should have been impossible. But humanity had never been very good at accepting what was possible. And that, in the end, made all the difference.